The white media's continued destruction of Bill Cosby and, by proxy, Black America, the steamrolling of a black icon, seems to have hit a couple of bumps in the road. And now you've got Kamau Bell, who is finding himself running for cover these days. Oh yeah, he makes sure that he stays on those white media outlets. That's the only time that he sticks his head up. But when it comes time to talk to the public, he's finding out that the initial backlash and pushback that he got to this latest pile of horse crap is not gonna stop there. It's just going. It's not stopping. And so Kamau Bell is doing what all bootlicks do when they get their teeth kicked in by the black grassroots. Just like Orca Winfrey when she called herself sticking up for her pal Gayle Skank after Gayle King attacked Kobe Bryant and his dead daughter right after the man's death, calling themselves, let's go ahead and tell people that he's a rapist. The white media knew that they couldn't send out Gayle Skank to stick up for herself, so they instead sent out America's favorite mammy, Orca Winfrey, and she's saying, I'm just worried about her, all of this abuse, I'm just worried about it. Yeah, you're trying to go for sympathy. When the black grassroots push back and pushes back hard, they're not saying, I'm Gayle Skank and I stand on my truth. Instead, it was, let's trot out Oprah Winfrey, and Oprah saying, well, I do have some lukewarm support to give for her truth. This is what the bootlegs always do when they get themselves smacked around. They run right back to white mommy and white daddy, right back to the white media. You've got to do something. The entire reason that W. Kamau Bell, and the W stands for worthless, was even given a platform by the white media was so that he could attack black people, with the attack on Cosby supposed to be the crown jewel of his pathetic career. But as Dumb Bell is learning the hard way, he's the wrong tool for this job. And now he's trying to play the victim. All those mean people online, they're saying things, they're saying they don't believe my line of bull. And just like Gayle Skank before him, he's attempting to play the victim. All these mean black folks, they just don't want to hear the truth about a black icon, and I've got the guts to say what the black community doesn't want to hear, and I'm being attacked by the black community. They're just coming down on me, and the white media is pretending to sympathize with them. The black community, will other black actors and entertainers want to be around me? The black community I'm just catching so much heat right now. I don't know how I'm going to come out of this. Please. Kamau Bell isn't playing victim. He's playing the hero for the white media. He knows this is what they want to see. This is something that would hopefully get some sympathy from them. Look at me. I'm standing strong against all these black people who are demanding to know why it is I don't have any evidence against Cosby. I'm standing strong against them in the face of all of these questions that I don't have any answers to. And he thinks that all of these good white liberals, racist as the day is long, that they're going to be looking at him and saying, look at our good boy, Kamau Bell. See, there's mendacity everywhere. We're not coming down on Cosby because he's black. Why? There's corruption everywhere. We're just only focused on if it's a black person that we can accuse of it. And Kamau, he's just calling out the reality, just the reality, and what Kamau Bell is doing is the same thing that you have these black bootlicks for Fox News or on the right-wing hate stations doing the same thing, which is, I'm speaking about everything wrong in America is black people's fault. Black people control everything in this country. Why? Black people have had every opportunity America's had to give. It's the exact same thing that Kamau Bell is doing, operating out of the exact same playbook with the exact same talking points. And you'll notice that the white so-called leftist media is reacting to Kamau Bell the exact same way that the white right media does. Oh yeah, you get some black person out there who's going to be trashing black America, who's going to be lynching black people by proxy, which is what all of this defamation of Michael Jackson and R. Kelly and Bill Cosby is. No matter what you think of the men personally, understand this isn't about them, okay? This is about black people using these black men as a proxy for them. Because if this was actually about their behavior, well, hell, that pales in comparison to anything you get from these white media moguls. And you would think that Kamau Bell would be bragging about, heck, all this attention that I'm getting for going after Cosby, I need some bigger fish. We need to really speak truth to power and shake the very corridors of power in this country. And we all know that power is white in America, so we're going to be going after some of these big fish. Let's look at Jeffrey Epstein. Even if we can't get the guy in prison, we can at least expose all of his seedy pals. But he understands that ain't the job that he was called in for. The white media wouldn't be giving him any sympathy if he starts saying, all these white people are coming down against me. They instead would be saying, well, Kamau Bell is very controversial. Notice how that word never comes up in relation to him. They don't call Kamau Bell controversial, even though this guy is catching hell from the black community for the falsehoods that he's promoting and the completely and thoroughly baseless gossip and gibberish that he is spouting. But the white media is not saying that he's controversial. Kamau Bell is not controversial for this. See, what the white media has always been able to depend upon is a complete and thorough monopoly, where they do all the talking and nobody else is allowed to say anything else. No one can say otherwise. That's the reason why when Bell did his interview on CBS, he specifically said, we could have talked to Cosby, but we didn't want to talk to him. We didn't want to give him it. We only wanted to talk to these false accusers. We wanted to talk to them. We didn't want to talk to Bill Cosby at all.
In 4 parts, you spoke to a lot of people, but you didn't speak or reach out to Cosby's camp, and they commented and said that they're having a bigger statement tomorrow, but basically called this baseless and had problems with the fact that they didn't have any input, I guess, in this film.
I mean, Bill Cosby and his camp has been very clear about where they stand on this. And this, to me, was about reckoning with the legacy and reckoning with what we can learn from this. And I think we have clips of Bill Cosby throughout to show what he thinks about these things and how he feels about these things. It didn't feel like if you're going to put the survivors in here, that you also then put Bill Cosby in here.
Now you're going to do a documentary about the man? 4 hours, and in a 4-hour documentary, you don't even have 1 hour to spend with the very man who everyone's been trying to get an audience with. The guy who you're talking about, you don't want to talk to. That's not a documentary. That's a character assassination piece. But here Kamau Bell is trying to get some false sympathy. He's telling white mommy and white daddy and the white media, you guys got to protect me. You got to do something about me. You got to help me out. These guys, they ain't buying it, and they're coming at me. Whew, I didn't think it was going to get this rough. This whole thing has gone bad, way ahead of schedule. What we did was we took the fact that this guy was bought, paid for, and approved of by the white media, and we've taken the very platform that they gave him and their huge resources, and we turned that into a liability. We're pointing at this and saying, hey, look at who's behind this. Look at who paid for this crap. This is freaking AstroTurf. Look at this clown they put out here. Look at all the money that they put behind this. We're actually going to the heart of the matter. Oh, when Kamau Bell says, this is about more than Cosby, we know. Except the thing is, Kamau Bell, as he always does, he lies about what it's really about. The same way that he and the white media lie by omission. The first lie the white media tried to tell regarding Kamau Bell is that black people are upset with him for doing this hit piece at all. The fact that he even did it is the problem. That's what you call a half-truth, and if you're not telling the whole truth, then it's a whole lie. The accusation against Bell was that there's already been a ton of documentaries and network hit pieces against Cosby. Not why is there a documentary at all, but it's a matter of, gee, do we really need another one? But that's not what Kamau Bell did. He lied through his teeth and said, oh, well, people, they seem to have a problem with the fact that I did this. Well, people are saying, how come there's not one about Harvey Weinstein and Woody Allen and Jeffrey Epstein? People said, why do we need another one about Cosby? Nobody said, how come there's one about Cosby? That's the lie that he has to tell because he can't defend his position, and the white media can't defend it either. Out of the 60 largely discredited accusers, there's only been one criminal trial, which had to happen twice in a row, and the prosecution had to violate the Constitution just to manufacture a conviction against Cosby. Now, how is that not even part of the story? Because neither Bell nor the Daily Beast even mentions that little factoid. Instead, they lie and try to pretend this is just about this attack piece pretending to be a documentary. That's all it's about. People are just hearing this and this guy saying something. He's the only one doing this in the black community. They just got outraged because of this one guy. Bell's pathetic defense that there's already been documentaries about Epstein, there's only one that I can think of, maybe two. And neither of them has been widely publicized. The white media has been avoiding talking about them altogether. During the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, you didn't see the white media going into a feeding frenzy looking for anyone who was doing any Epstein documentaries. You didn't see them put anybody for the camera. They weren't doing that at all. The white media was not at all making a cause celeb out of this or that person saying, well, you need to do everything. We need to dig underneath Epstein's fingernails. I mean, hell, you ain't got to dig underneath his fingernails. The guy was dirty from head to toe. But you would think that if there would have been an absolute orgy of attention, an absolute orgy of media focus on anyone talking about an Epstein documentary, it would have been during the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, but it didn't happen. There should have been a feeding frenzy, if Bell is to be believed, but of course his job is to be the black face running interference for white supremacy. And he understands that. He knows exactly what his job is. Yeah, bootlicks may be morons, but they're not completely stupid. They know exactly what their job is. Their job is to get in front of that camera and spout the gibberish that massa wants. And he also understands that he better not be saying, well, you know what, next we need to ask some questions about Woody Allen, just some questions. And then we need to ask some questions about Les Moonves. Hey, let's ask some questions about Charlie Sheen next. Let's go ahead and we need to ask questions. We're just asking questions, mind you. He isn't doing that, and he understands exactly what that is. Well, I don't really have an interest in that. Gee, why not? But his deflection about, there's already been documentaries about Weinstein and Allen and Epstein. He knows that nobody's seen those because the white media gave them no attention. Just like Rachel Evan Wood and her documentary about the sexual abuse allegedly that she suffered at the hands of Marilyn Manson and his other alleged victims. White media doesn't talk about that either. They just ignore that. Bell knows this. So for him to talk about there's been documentaries against those other guys, that would be like saying there's been plenty of videos on YouTube about Woody Allen. Well, there's been far more documentaries and media coverage about Cosby. In what basically amounted to a paid advertisement that Variety was doing regarding Bell's mockumentary, they reported that Bell, quote, knew from the start that he was one of several filmmakers working on a docu about the comedian actor, and they go on to quote Dumb Bell himself, who said, on good authority, I know that there is at least one finished documentary somewhere sitting on a shelf that they don't know what to do with. I also know there's one that Cosby sat for. Sometimes we would call people and they would ask if we were one of the other Cosby productions, and we would say, no, we were always like, we're not connected to him at all. So there you have it. Oh, he's well aware of exactly what the issue is. We need another Cosby documentary. Nowhere, by the way, does Bell or the white media ask, what is the unique angle that this mental midget Bell is going to explore with his documentary? What makes it newsworthy? Why should anyone even care? Because this is the only one that happens to have a black face out front slinging the slime. Dumb Bell presents no new information. All anyone has are the same empty and false accusations we've been hearing for a few years now. So what pile of lies and crap is he going to push that literally every other white media outlet, including CNN that he works for, hasn't already said a million times? Bell has said himself he doesn't want to talk to Cosby. Now, if he had done a sit down with Bill Cosby, that would have been different. That would have been something that he could talk about for his little mockumentary and say, I'm actually talking about, I'm confronting him. He could have done that. But he said he didn't want to give Cosby a platform. We need to keep this about the accusers. Well, hell, why even put Bill Cosby's name into it? If this is just about the accusers, why not just put them on the doggone cover, make it about them? But if he did that, then you wouldn't be able to keep up the steady drumbeat about all of these rapacious black men. The anti-black angle would be lost if he did that. And for this scumbag to say that the Cosby trial tells us a lot about America, oh yeah, it does. Kyle Rittenhouse is a violent punk. He was caught on video beating a teenage girl just weeks before he went to Kenosha, illegally carrying an assault rifle, gunning down 3 people, killing 2 of them. He skipped out on bail, and after all that, the judge, and a large extent the prosecution as well, worked to make sure he didn't go to prison. Kyle Rittenhouse is not rich, he's not famous, he's not well-to-do, he doesn't come from a well-off family, he's not politically connected, and yet he got the kind of treatment in court that Bill Cosby couldn't have bought. Bill Cosby is rich, famous, has an impeccable reputation up until this, but the white media justified an illegal prosecution of him, a railroading, so that they could get attention off of the sexual rapacity of the white media executives who run these networks and these newspapers who want all of the attention on Bill Cosby or R. Kelly or Michael Jackson or the Man on the Moon, just anyone but them. And of course, Dumb Bell doesn't talk about that at all. Now, why the world is it, if this guy is just so concerned, he is just so enamored with the subject of powerful men. This is about powerful men. Well, hell, if that's your jam, then Jeffrey Epstein was made to order. The story of Jeffrey Epstein is the quintessential man with power who abuses it and destroys lives, etc., etc., etc. His story reads almost like fiction. You have this individual whose wealth is still largely shrouded in mystery. People don't really exactly know all the details, or even most of them, about how exactly Jeffrey Epstein came by all that money he's got. So this mystery mega millionaire who runs around the world, and at least into the Caribbean, jet-setting with presidents and princes alike, he has his own private island where it's been rumored for years that he and all of his high-powered pals abuse children. This is who Jeffrey Epstein is. I mean, you could barely write this for a movie. And when the authorities tried to nab him, his high-powered friends at the federal level said, "Hands off Epstein." And then you had the sheriff saying, well, that little sentence that you got, you only have to come to prison for a few hours a day, and maybe you're off on weekends, and don't worry, with good behavior, you'll be out before you know it. You won't even have to show up to the jail anymore. I mean, who the hell gets treated like that? Certainly not a black man. And when Epstein's crimes did surface into the public's attention, you had the man die under mysterious circumstances, which to this day the public does not believe. Most people are completely and thoroughly incredulous when it comes to the idea that Jeffrey Epstein took his own life. The timing, the circumstances, it's the very epitome of convenient. Oh, what happened to the cameras? There was a malfunction. And nobody knew that this guy was killing himself? You mean his cellmate didn't know about it either? That dude must sleep like the dead himself. Now, if Kamau Bell wanted to do a story about powerful men, they don't get much more powerful than the Jeffrey Epsteins of this world. But, as Kamau Bell knows, if you go in on Jeffrey Epstein, well, naturally, we're led to Harvey Weinstein and Les Moonves and Woody Allen, white men who run the white media, the same white media that Kamau Bell works for and who he depends upon for every crumb of his daily bread. It was obvious to everyone that this is not a documentary. This is a paid hit piece. We see right through this clown. You see, part of the white media's miscalculation here was the whole part 2 of Surviving R. Kelly. That was part of what led to this. That came out in early 2020, and when it did, you had a whole lot of folks who thought to themselves that they were getting away with something. That is, until both the pandemic and the murder of George Floyd and the uprisings that followed occurred. Now, the white media thought to themselves that they were on a roll. They didn't realize they were running out of steam even then. They didn't realize that people were already seeing through the scam and already starting to push back heavy even then. But for the last couple of years, they've been able to convince themselves, we could have had this thing going if only hadn't been for that darn pandemic. And George Floyd, why did George Floyd have to go and die on us? Why have to do that? That's where the white media is at. So now they're trying to cement into the public consciousness the lie that the black man is the sexual super predator in America. That's what this is about. Because as long as we hammer that to death, and as somebody who had previously worked in marketing, I can tell you right now, that's part of how marketing works. If you want to make sure that people have actually gotten the message, you basically have to do it to the point where they're basically going, all right, shut the hell up, I got it. That's how you know that you have basically done enough advertising for your product. When enough people have seen it that they're sick of hearing about it, that's how you know that they're aware of it. That's how you establish brand recognition. When it's to a point that people are familiar with it to the point that they're telling you, will you shut up about it already? We already know. The white media, that's their stock in trade. Advertising, that's part of what they do. And they also understand that the same way that you can build a good reputation, or at least build word of mouth and mind share by constantly putting out nonstop advertisements for something, you can also demonize someone and manufacture a false narrative that solidifies in the public consciousness by doing nothing but running someone into the ground. They understand how both of those principles work. Now, part of why Bell is so worried right now is because people are connecting the dots. And they're not waiting for the white media to come along and do it for them. You got people at the grassroots putting 2 and 2 together on their own and coming to some very, very interesting conclusions. Hannibal Buress and now Kamau Bell, On a side note, yes, I am aware that you've had some of the usual suspects who were in Kamau Bell's mockumentary, Mark Lamont, you big dummy hill. You had that clown Jelani Cobb who talks like he's got a mouthful of mashed potatoes when he's on MSNBC. You've had a few of those usual suspects. But some of you were surprised to see Godfrey. Now, before we go any farther, and I'm not going to make a big deal about this because there ain't much to be made about it, I've always told you that there's a reason why you hear me say certain names and other names you never hear me say. Now, in many cases, such as the case of Square Jaw and Mushmouth, it'll be because they've said and done some grimy stuff that I looked at and said, hell, you guys might as well wear t-shirts that say we're agents. Other people, because my ancestral intuition, or whatever you want to call it, basically made me look and go, I don't know. I'm catching bad vibes off of you. And then there are others still who I look at things that they've done, or rather things that they didn't do, but should have done. As a lot of you know, it's very difficult to get an endorsement from Professor Black Truth. Very difficult indeed. You only got a small handful of people whose names I even mention. You see some of the people in the comments section, brothers like Tarian Rain, brothers like Mr. Harvey, Nicole's View. You can count all the names of the people who I recommend to you on one hand. Small list, very small list, very, very select, very well curated, by the way. Now, I could run around name dropping, or I could run around saying this person did this or this person did that, or look at the company this person keeps, etc., etc. Let's be bluntly honest. With most black folks, all that does is it leads to a bunch of back and forth and a bunch of arguing, which I don't have the time, the patience for, and it's not necessary. Time will always prove who was true and who's not. I don't have to get into a long, drawn-out anything with anybody. You got to be very careful when you got these Negroes trying to make it an entertainment, because there's always somebody looking for a shortcut. Always somebody who'll talk hard as hell when they're in front of you, but when it comes time to be trying to figure out how do I get that Netflix special, what do I have to do to get myself in the good graces of the people who could open some of those doors for me, well, a number of them just start talking very differently. So here's the thing. Some of you might have been surprised at some of the people who took part in this, but you shouldn't be. This is the reason why when I started doing the Moment of Truth, among the very first moments of truth that I did, number 7 and 8 dealt specifically with these black folks, celebrities like LeBron James for Moment of Truth number 7. Is he supposed to be the white media's answer to the black media? And number 8, black celebs keep showing why we shouldn't follow them. Even if you got some black celeb who says something that you agree with, that's nice. But we're not waiting for their support, and we're not counting on it either. Look, it doesn't matter if it's these black singers, athletes, or actors. All of them are trying to be part of the right cheese and croissant circuit parties. They're all trying to find out, how do I get invited to the right mansion at the right time? How do I become part of the in crowd? They're all just trying to be inside. And a lot of them, for them, especially if they haven't gotten noticed yet or don't think that they're going to get noticed, sure, it's easy for them to talk that hard stuff. But as soon as they start getting a little bit older, when they start realizing that maybe those opportunities aren't going to be coming at all for them, well, that's when a lot of them start showing their true colors. So please stop looking for some black person who's a celebrity as a means of giving what we do legitimacy or signal boosting what we're doing. We're not trying to find out how do we get all of these, some high profile person to be part of our parade. We're trying to liberate ourselves from them, not handcuff ourselves to them. Besides, people already at the grassroots fully recognize this phony orgy of media attention on Cosby for the fraud that it is. We know that this is AstroTurf. It ain't grassroots. But what hasn't been looked at is the part that these bootlicks have been playing in all this, whether or not this was some organic thing at all, and who is behind it. Because wherever there's human suffering, there's also human vultures. There's a number of black people who are so vile, so corrupt, so low down. These are the same Negroes who would tell Massa every time we were planning a rebellion on the plantations, they say, Massa, they planning to do something, Massas. These fools are still around to this day. They're still here. And they're still putting on the cape for Massa. When you see Dumbbell trying to defend his propaganda piece by saying, well, there's already documentaries about Epstein. Well, that's the equivalent of saying, you gonna stop talking bad about Massa. You gonna stop talking bad about Massa. Tarana Burke, you'll recall, did the exact same thing when people called her out for her phony outrage over R. Kelly. People demanded to know, hey, Tarana, when are you going to use this white media attention that you keep getting to put a spotlight on Harvey Weinstein, who had been accused by at least one black woman, Lupita Nyong'o? And what did Tyrannosaurus Burke say? Why is it my job to go after white men? Yeah, even when these white men are menacing black women, it's not her job to go after them either, only if they're black. She made it very clear. I can only say something about a black person. Can't say something about a white man, even if this is to help a black woman. If it's to save a black woman, I can't do anything about that. I'm under orders. She might have well just gone out and said that. Spoken like a white media tool. Why is it my job to go after white men? Nobody said go after white men. We said it is your job to make sure that you go after anyone who is harming black women. But she decides, well, if you're black, I can say something. But if you're not, well, I can't do anything at all. Sorry, sisters, you're on your own. She knows the white media that she desperately wants the support of. She knows that they're watching. And she's eager to prove her loyalty to them. Seriously, who in their right mind would publish any nonsense that Tarana Burke writes? Who the hell would do a doggone interview with her for any reason? She's not interesting. It's not as if she's profound. She doesn't have anything to say. When Tyrannosaurus Burke was on stage with Rose McGowan, that for her was the high point of her entire life. It wasn't going to get any better than that. She's on stage with some woman who might have been on a TV show, a couple of low-budget flicks. And for Tarana Burke, oh my God, I have arrived. I'm one of the beautiful people. Pun intended. But that's what she's thought of. That's how it is for her. She's finally going to have the white media validating her beauty. She's going to have the white media validating her attractiveness. She's one of the hot girls. Because she's told the white media, oh, these men, they just can't keep their hands off of me. I have been assaulted so many times. They can't keep their hands off me. They can't keep their hands off me. And to her, that's the neuroses that's being fed. She feels the white media is playing along with this. And as far as she's concerned, even if everybody tells her, well, sweetie, you, in the looks department, you ain't exactly all that. Well, the white media says that they're going to report on this, and that makes it true. If the white media says it, then it must be true. Depending on a corrupt white media to back up what she says, or at the very least, to lend some air of legitimacy to it, Tyrannosaurus Burke ain't alone. Kamau Bell's operating from the same playbook. Why should I do documentaries about Weinstein or Woody Allen? Yeah, it sounds just like, why is it my job to go after white men? The job of the bootlick is to protect white power, and they know it. What they don't know is if they're going to be made to pay any sort of social or economic penalty for this. All of these bootlicks, especially the ones on cable TV, on these little white media news stations, they understand that their job is to prove that they can corral and mislead black people. And if we reject these bootlicks, then that means they become damaged goods to the white media. Worse than that, people are asking serious questions about whether Hannibal Buress was put up to doing those routines attacking Cosby. Did someone incentivize him to do it? And if so, who? Because people are looking at all of the white media attention that Kamau Bell's getting, and we're going, the last time that we saw the white media doing this was only for somebody else, and that one other person, that was Hannibal Buress. Is it possible do we see a pattern forming here? Our powers of pattern recognition are active right now, and we're looking and going, some washed up Z-list comedian, who the white media claims is a comedian, but they ain't made nobody crack a smile, much less laugh. And this comedian is claiming all this stuff about Bill Cosby, and he just wants to trash Bill Cosby. He doesn't want to talk to Bill Cosby, doesn't want to confront Bill Cosby, doesn't want to vet anything about it. He just wants to trash Bill Cosby. He's got this single-minded psychopathic drive. I must destroy Cosby. Now, where have we seen this before? We've seen it with Hannibal Buress. And people are looking and going, you don't suppose that these guys basically are not just operating on the same playbook, but they're also working on behalf of the same shadowy forces in the white media? You don't suppose that by any chance, do you? And that's what's happening now. People are asking serious questions. We're looking at Hannibal Buress and Kamau Bell and going, nah, this doesn't look like a coincidence. This looks like a manufactured, deliberate white media campaign. And the bootlick's greatest fear is for their masters to get attacked because of them. If something they do makes it where their white media masters wind up coming under fire, man, Massa will kick those guys straight out the doggone boat, won't even hesitate. He'll vent his rage on them, and that'll be the end of the bootlick anywhere. When you volunteer to be a crash dummy for the white media, well, white media looks and goes, hey, you're one use only. You don't use crash dummies repeatedly. They're just one use only. Afterwards, all right, it's off to the dumpster you go. Kamau Bell is selling himself to the white media, and it's not going according to plan either. Dumbbell's getting called out. This moron's finding out the hard way. The white media can give you a platform, but they can't give you legitimacy. Trotting out the same old lineup of the same old party girls, hookers, thoughts, and model actress whatevers in front of the camera to repeat the same old stale, long since disproven accusations. They're finding that it doesn't quite have the punch that it used to. But of course, as we all know, this isn't about the accusers or their lies. This is about keeping up a steady drumbeat of anti-black propaganda. Whether or not the public, and certainly the black grassroots, falls for it, that's not the white media's goal. This isn't about whether or not you believe this garbage. What it is about is maintaining a steady drumbeat of anti-black propaganda. They need something coming out at regular, frequent intervals, so the society is constantly either seeing or being prepared to see yet another hit piece about a black man doing whatever. That's what they actually need. Whether or not people believe it is immaterial. This is the epitome of the big lie. If you just repeat something often enough, people are going to come to believe it, or at the very least, as I've always told you, history is whatever people are told the most often. That's history. History is whatever people hear the most often. So Kamau Bell can try to get attention and sympathy from the white media all he wants. He won't be getting it from anybody else. The grassroots are on to him. And we're asking questions about who it was who put him up to this, because those are the guys that we ultimately are going to be wanting to see our own exposés about. People figured out from the jump that talentless nobodies like Hannibal Buress and Kamau Bell couldn't possibly have come up with this on their own. These morons can only do whatever some white producer gives them money and a script to do, so we're not fooled. But we are very, very much interested in who the world has been backing them up on this, who the world's been putting them up to it. The individuals who Kamau Bell depends upon for a paycheck. Those are the individuals who don't want any questions being asked. So if he's worried about his career now, he's going to be really worried as more and more questions get asked about the white media people who have been putting him and Hannibal Buress up to this mess. Who's been behind this? Who's been pushing this? As the evidence gets found and the information gets uncovered and all of that connective tissue starts coming together. And if Kamau Bell doesn't like the fact that the black community's giving his propaganda piece thumbs down, tough. As long as Kamau Bell continues to tell falsehoods about black people, we're going to continue telling the truth about him. Good evening, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Ginger Vine, Jasmine B., Eve, Antonio Daniels, and Robert Fletcher. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.